Mr. Fleming.
Here.
Mr. Gill.
Here.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace.
Here.
Mr. McKinnon.
Here.
Ms. O'Connell.
Here.
Dr. Pritchard.
Here.
Mr. Thomas. Mr. Tolles.
Here.
Ms. Wilbanks.
Here.
And Chair Sharp.
Here.
We have 9 members.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Everyone should already have a copy of today's agenda for this June 11th telephonic meeting. Anyone who wishes to be a speaker on today's agenda has an attendance speaker's card and is in the hand of Mr. Whitehead. When it's time for you to speak, he will call your name, will unmute you, and at the appropriate time for you to speak. Please wait about 10 seconds before speaking so you can be properly unmuted and so that we can hear all of your remarks. At this point, I would like to read our conflict of interest statement.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
May I interrupt briefly? Our YouTube technician, Director Zena, has asked us to hold off a minute because I think he's having some issues getting this meeting streamed.
Okay.
Oh, he has told me we are good. Okay, proceed. I apologize.
Okay. At this point, I would like to read our conflict of interest statement. The adopted policy of the Land Use Control Board requires that any member of the board recuse himself or herself from any participation in the discussion or voting on any matter on the meeting's agenda in which he or she may have direct or indirect personal interest. The member shall, for the purpose of this conference, let us know verbally they are recusing themselves. During deliberation on any matter from which they have recused themselves, an abstention may substitute for a recusal for the purposes of maintaining a quorum. I would now like to get approval of our minutes from the May 14, 2020 meeting. May I have a motion? And when you make a motion and when you make a second, please give us your name. May I have a motion, please?
Pritchard, I move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Wilbanks. Ms. Wilbanks, you gave us a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those against, motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Whitehead, may I please get a secretary's report for this month and an explanation of today's procedures?
Yes, ma'am. This meeting, of course, as you mentioned, is a telephonic meeting. To get to my list of notes. As I mentioned last month and the month before that, we stream now on YouTube, which is a live stream. There's about a 1-second delay, which allows particularly well-participated meetings to enable people towards the end of the agenda to watch on YouTube and then call on as their case is heard. It appears we will only have 3 hearings today, so that may not be as crucial as it has been in the previous months. With that said, YouTube allows unique URLs to be issued for users that reach 100 subscribers. We are 26 away from that number, so if anybody wants to tell their cousins and family to get us up to 100, that will make our public notices a little simpler to utilize because the recipient of that notice could more easily, hand type that website address into their browser. My next note deals with city council hearings. I am working with council staff as well as the chair and the vice chair. The vice chair is coincidentally also the Planning and Zoning Committee Chair, on addressing the backlog. As you know, the council customarily does not hold land use hearings during the budget season, which was of course true this year, but a couple months prior to budget season, they did not have any land use hearings due to the pandemic. So there is a backlog, I think about 20 cases waiting to be heard by the council. What does that have to do with the items on today's agenda? A 1-month hold on any of the items this morning will not affect the eventual hearing by that case or by the council of that case. So just keep that in mind. With that, I will go to my explanation of the consent agenda, Madam Chair. At the beginning of our meeting, we will establish a consent agenda for those items where no one in the audience or on the board is requesting an individual public hearing. After the consent agenda is established and approved, we will move on to the regular agenda. The regular agenda are the public hearings in which we will follow the procedure where the applicant and the supporters have a total of 10 minutes to present their testimony, and the opposition has the equal amount of time of 10 minutes. I believe our vice chair will be keeping the clock on the 10-minute time period. Finally, we go back to the applicant for a 3-minute rebuttal. Following all those presentations and after all parties have been heard, the chair will ask if any of the board members have additional questions of anyone who spoke. Then the chair will close the public hearing, entertain a motion, the board will discuss, and then vote on the application. If during the discussion period of the process, a board member wants to ask an additional question of anyone who provided testimony, we have a motion to that effect. A 2/3 vote is required. We reopen the public hearing, and then the chair will ensure that both sides are given an equal amount of time to provide additional testimony. With that, Madam Chair, I have an update to the consent agenda for Ms. Wilbanks and others, and, well, the agenda overall. And I believe one of our board members may be driving. So if you feel like you are maybe that board member, just put your phone on mute until we get to the vote portion. Going through the agenda, and by the way, the agenda is available on is accessed via 3 locations. The first is the county's website, the Land Use Control Board's homepage. As I mentioned time and time again, the benefit of being the only planning commission in the universe called the Land Use Control Board is, I use this, you just Google Land Use Control Board and you get to our homepage real quick. There's a link on there that takes you to the YouTube page where you can watch the PowerPoints. There's also a most recent agenda link which takes you to the agenda where you can download the staff reports. You can also, from that agenda, go to the YouTube page. Number 2, you can Google Land Use Control Board on the YouTube browser or the YouTube search engine. And number 3, we are on the city's website, and our Granicus is running this. No, we're not running Granicus, but the agenda is posted on the city's website. You go to the homepage, memphistn.gov. The bottom slab of blue tabs, there's a Watch Government Meetings, and then upcoming events, you'll find our agenda there, which again links to the YouTube page. Okay. Madam Chair and Board Member Wilbanks will go through these just to provide an update. Agenda item number 1, just moments ago, was withdrawn, so that will not be heard this morning. Agenda item number 2, we will have a hearing. Agenda number 3, Madam Wilbanks, that can be placed on the consent as a 1-month hold. Number 4, we will have a hearing. Number 5 can be placed on consent as an approval. Number 6, that is consent as a hold, and Ms. Wilbanks, of course, will call these out. I'm just updating everyone. Number 7, we will have a short hearing. We'll go straight to the applicant. I believe he has an update to the site plan. Number 8 is consent as approval. Number 9 is consent as approval. And Ms. Wilbanks, when you go to number 9, I have a friendly condition to read into the record. Number 10 is consent as a hold, and number 11 is consent as approval. With that, Madam Chair, I'll hand the floor back over to you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. This is Daryl Thomas. I've been here since the beginning, but I was muted, so please mark me present.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Again, if any member of the audience wishes to provide testimony and support in opposition to a case, he or she should have already filled out a speaker's card and provided it to Mr. Whitehead. Okay, thank you, Mr. Whitehead. And I'd like to make another small announcement. The Land Use Control Board is a supporter of community involvement, and we welcome neighborhood comments and feedback. We are respectful of the fact that many of you have taken off work, adjusted work schedules, or adjusted your schedule, even if you're still at home, to be heard today via telephone. But we ask that your comments please be made within the time frame allowed. We do have a timekeeper keeping time. If there are multiple speakers, please try not to be repetitive with your side's limited time. Lastly, even though we're on the telephone, I'd like to ask you to silence your cell phones so as not to interrupt or disturb anyone during today's proceedings, as these can still be heard if you are unmuted via this teleconference. Right now, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. With our procedures now explained, I would like to introduce to you Ms. Lisa Wilbanks, who will be this morning's consent agenda chairperson. Ms. Wilbanks will read those items 1 through 11, which will be on the consent agenda. Those items where requests have been made for a public hearing will not be placed on consent, except for those cases that will be held in abeyance until a future meeting. Ms. Wilbanks, will you proceed, please?
Yes, ma'am. Item number 3, case PD 20-03 in Evergreen. The request is a 2-lot residential plan development at the west side of Garland Street, 319 Garland Street, plus or minus 60 feet south of Peach Avenue. Staff recommendation is a hold. Item number 5, case Z86-126 in Orange Mound. The requests are modifications to the Skyview Shopping Center plan, the southwest corner of Park and Haynes. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 6, case PD 93-352 in Hickory Hill. The request is a car wash at the northeast corner of Winchester and Riverdale. Staff recommendation is a hold. Item number 8, case PD 05-344 in Cordova. The request is a time extension to a mixed-use development on 65 acres at the northeast corner of Macon and Houston Levee. Staff recommendation is approval. Item number 9, case PD 20-05 in Highland Heights. The request is a social service institution on the east and west sides of Malcolm between Summer and Broad Avenue. Staff recommendation is approval, and Mr. Whitehead will give us the revised conditions.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. On condition Roman numeral 4, capital B, the existing language will be struck and replaced with the following language. No parking or internal drives shall be permitted between Lot 2's primary structure and Malcolm, period.
All right. Item number 10, case SUP 20-05 in Annisville Snowden. The request is a special use permit to allow surface parking at 1177 and 1183 Minna Place to serve adjacent office buildings. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 11, case SUP 20-06 in the Medical District. The request is a hotel at the northeast corner of Union and Camilla, and the staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. Thank you. A motion, please, to approve the consent agenda as read.
So moved, Daryl Thomas.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Jennifer O'Connell.
Who was the second by?
Jennifer O'Connell.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, nay? Thank you. Motion carries. Now we're going to go on to our regular agenda. Dr. Pritchard is the chair of our regular agenda. Will you please call the items?
Agenda item number 2, PD 20-01 Cooper Young, 4-unit townhouse at the southwest corner of Barksdale and Nelson. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. We do have some opposition, so we will hear this one. Mr. Backus, will you please give us a presentation? We do have some opposition, so we will hear this one. Mr. Backus, will you please give us a presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Brian, can I interrupt you for one moment? I believe a member of the board may have their YouTube on, their computer on. So if you can mute that, we will eliminate the echoing.
This is item 1.
I think that's it. Okay, Brian, we're ready. Thank you.
Item 2.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the board. This is Brian Backus, the Office of Planning and Development. I'm presenting this case on behalf of my colleague, Mr. Jeffrey Prenzis. This application is for the Barksdale Multifamily Plan Development. This item was held last month in order for the neighborhood to meet with the applicant and the representative of the applicant to try come up with a compromise to go forward with the project. This development is at 833 South Barksdale. It's at the southwest corner of Barksdale and Nelson in District 4. This request is for a 4-unit townhouse structure. Total area of the property is about 9,500 square feet. It is in the R6 district in Cooper Young Historic District. The site as well is located at the southwest corner. This is I'm having difficulty with the YouTube, but this is the location of the property, as I stated earlier, is in Cooper Young. This development was before last month, and the subject property is a small lot located at that corner. The applicant mailed notices to adjacent property owners with 500 feet, and the zoning, as I stated earlier, is R6 Historic District zoning. The surrounding developments are single-family homes in this Cooper Young, and the aerial site photos are in your staff report on page 10, 11, and the site concept plan is on page 12. It indicates the location of and orientation and placement of the buildings as they front Barksdale Street with an open space area along the Nelson Avenue side, including a unit that faces Nelson Avenue. The unit's elevation plans are on page 13 of your staff report. On page 14, there's a 3D rendering of the property. It's a 2-story development with hip roof with gables, roof gables on the front with windows. Lower story is one is brick, and the upper story is hardy plank siding, horizontal siding. There's a wraparound porch on the Nelson Avenue side, a feature that is significant within the district. And the applicant has met with the neighborhood association, and we believe they've come up with a compromise on this development. And the Office of Planning and Development has recommended approval with conditions. And that's all I have, Madam Chairman. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Backus. Is the applicant present? Is the applicant present?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, may I interrupt? Niraj, I believe your computer might have sound on. Can you mute your computer?
Madam Chair, may I interrupt? Niraj, I believe your computer might have sound on. Can you mute your computer? Madam Chair, may I interrupt? Niraj, I believe your computer might
you mute him again?
sound on. Can you
Okay, are we ready for the applicant yet?
Well, he was just on, but we had to mute him. We're going to try this again. Niraj, you can hear me, but we can't hear you. Before we turn your phone back on, please mute your computer to eliminate the echo. So in about 3 seconds, we'll turn you back on. Okay, Jeffrey. Niraj, can you hear me? Niraj?
Yes.
Okay, that's better. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. I would like to see my presentation on the screen, please.
There we go.
Hello?
Yes, sir. It's streaming now, your PowerPoint.
Okay, so my name is Niraj Kumar. I'm the architect for the project, and Aspen Developer, they are the developer for the project. I'm the principal architect for Design Group LLC, and let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so as for the last land use control board meeting, there was a request to meet with the neighbors and get the concern so that we can hear the concern and we can come up with a compromise. So we met with them at June 3rd. The meeting was almost like 1.5 hours, and it was organized by the Cooper Young Neighborhood Committee. And at a given point, they were attended by more than 20 neighbors. I don't have the exact number, but there may be more neighbors attending the meeting. Next slide, please. So most of the discussions and concern was related to the architectural style and the character. They also have the concern regarding the volume and the mass and the density. And there were also discussion about the the Cooper Young Historic Landmark Design Guidelines. Are we consistent with that? There were other side issues, those I consider minor. As we go with the Landmark Commission's review, we'll also talk about those items. But there were issues like turning radius of the garage, on-site parking, there are a couple of issues like that. So we have addressed most of the issues right now, and I think those are acceptable to the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So in addition to the concern, we also asked them what is the suggestions, and I think there was a consensus voice that they would like to see the development more like a single-family home rather than a multifamily. Although as an architect, I believe that my design, whatever the use of the end use of the property, it should reflect also on the exterior. However, there was a good voice that the development should more looks like a single-family home, so they can blend with the neighborhood character style. So we looked at, all these, this slide here shows, the various elevation, various photographs of the houses around, and you can see the most consistent is the front, extended front porch. They also have, 2-story houses. Some of those are 1.5 story with a dormer. We also see they have extended carport at the front. Most of the houses, you can see either they're brick or stucco or stone. So they have combinations of these materials. We saw that. But our effort is to ensure that we are consistent with the style, and based on this, we made some modifications. So please next slide, please. So you can see on the left-hand side, that's our previous exterior rendering, and on the right-hand side is our new rendering. And I apologize, we have been working on this, even the last minute, so our new design could not get into the staff report. But you can see we have a significant change. We extended our porch, from which was in the corner in the front. Now it is extended all the way from the west side to the east side, which is very much consistent. You can also see the style of the roof and all the volumes, everything. We also brought down the volumes on the front. so that it looks more like a single-family home rather than a multi-family apartment. Also, one thing you can see on the left-hand side, our previous design was more looks like apartment. Every unit has a distinct porch in front. We kind of took those out to ensure that this looks more like a single family with a front porch in the front. That also kind of enhance the possibility of interactions and make us more pedestrian friendly. You also see on the right-hand side, we also have a carport, which is very consistent with most of the houses you see in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So this slide just shows again, the same the rendering at the intersection of Nelson and Barksdale, and this is all right at the Google Maps, so you can see. I mean, this in terms of volumes and the character, you can see the house next door, which is also very much consistent with the mapping and all. In fact, the setback and all those we are trying to be very consistent with what they have in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. This is again the view looking north from the Barksdale, and you can see, on the front and the back, we have significantly decreased the volume. Both those units are 1.5 unit now, and and then you have 2 units which is in the center. They're still 2-story, and they have an entrance from the Barksdale side with a single porch. Next slide, please. These are just the elevations and also the rendering of the front porch. You can see the porch is a very distinct character in the neighborhood, and we have we incorporate that in our new design. So this porch is now extended all the way in the front from the west to east side. These are just the elevations. What you see, the rendering is kind of elevation for that. Next slide, please. And this just shows the fact, the top one shows what we had previously. All the 4 units were 2-story, and now the lower image shows that the unit number 1, which is facing Nelson, and unit number 4, which is in the back, those are 1.5 stories. So that really helps a lot in decreasing the volumes and the massing. Next slide, please. So there was also discussion about the density, and I would like to stress here the fact that, although most of the houses are single-family duplexes in this area, however, this side is unique, and I think this is ideal for 4-story multifamily. Reason for that, this is a corner lot, so it has the opportunity to be open from the 2 sides, even after, the development is done. It's also at the intersection. Barksdale is pretty wide road compared to any other road you see in the neighborhood, so that's provide the opportunity to have a multifamily. It's across the street. On the north side is a commercial building. So my point is that this is a different site than what you see in the neighborhood, and this is ideal for the multifamily. By doing this site plan, you can see even with the 4 units, we have ample setback all around the building. We have an alley on the west side, and all the other 3 sides is wide open. So we are not trying to cram these units. All the units get enough natural light at both the floors. Next slide, please. And there are some other multifamily development in this area. And you can see there's 2, which is not too far from us. One is on the Ilse Avenue, and one is 2039 York, which is also 4-story, 4-unit apartments. So we have a precedent to follow. Next slide, please. And this slide just shows the photographs of the neighborhood. There was a question. We have 1-car garage, and our intent is to have the second car on the street. You can see almost every street you can see on a given day, they have they have on-street parking. So we're not doing anything different than what is there already in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So these are from my last presentation. These are again the slide shows the intersections. Some of the development. They are two-story. You can also see there's a church at the intersection of Young and Barksdale. So we have done everything to make sure our neighbors in the area, they are happy and satisfied, bringing the volume down. Although we feel that was a compromise to make them happy, but they are development in this area. You can see they are even with a bigger volume and mass what we are proposing. So that's end of my presentation. I'll request the board to look at the value of this project. We'll add to the neighborhoods. The site has been vacant and is eyesore. If not developed, it will continue to do so. Aspen Development has a vision to bring quality development serving young homeowners who wants to live in this neighborhood. But currently, they do not have much choice. As an architect, I have been listening to the neighbors' concern. At this point, I feel we have incorporated most of their concerns, and their concerns at this point, I feel, is more of apprehension to see the change that will take place on the site. I feel strongly the change is for positive. I request the board to approve the case so my developer can move to the next step of review process. That's end my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Okay, we're ready for the opposition, and we do have 13 people who want to speak, so you're going to have to try to keep it within 10 minutes, and that means about 45 seconds per person.
And if we have some time left, then I would like Mr. Dweck to speak, if we have some time left for me.
He'll come back to you for your 3-minute rebuttal after the fact,
okay,
plus whatever time you have left. Okay, we're ready for the opposition.
Yes, ma'am. Our first person in the queue is Ms. Olivia Wall.
Ms. Wall?
Yes. Do I need to be sworn in?
No, but you do need to give us your name and address.
Olivia Wall, I'm speaking on behalf of the Cooper Young Community Association Development Committee, located at 2298 Young Avenue.
Okay. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for hearing from the Cooper Young Community Association on this matter. Although we appreciate the changes made to the design does not matter right now. The land use does. As such, we respectfully request that you reject this project as proposed. You held this project so the applicant could meet with us and address our concerns, but they dismissed the major land use issues the neighborhood has with this project. 4 units is too many. It is too many for the size of the lot. It is too many to allow for safe and adequate parking. It is too many to handle 8 separate trash and recycling bins. It is too many to handle the drainage. It is too many for a designated ANS nurture site. It is too many for a quiet neighborhood street. Barksdale is not a major road. It is only wide because streetcars used to go down it. That is our history, and we are here to ensure Cooper Young remains Cooper Young. That only happens if new structures support the integrity of our neighborhood and are compatible with the surroundings. There is no design that can make 4 units on this lot contribute to our established streetscapes or foster our community. The largest multifamily house on an adjacent street block is 3,168 square feet. This project is twice the size on a lot less than 10,000 square feet. A single-family unit would be the most appropriate to uphold 3.0, the UDC, and the Cooper Young Landmarks guidelines. 2 units would be a compromise and would take into consideration the concerns of the neighborhood about mass, scale, parking, drainage, and setbacks. The current owner applied to build a 4-unit structure on this lot in 2014. Only 2 units were approved. During that process, the neighborhood dealt with a pattern of continued concerning actions by the current owner of this property in regard to obtaining proper permits, disobeying multiple stop work orders, and working beyond the scope of permits. These actions are detailed in a letter attached to the 2014 staff report. This information further gives us pause that the project will not adhere to any guidelines set forth by any governing body. We are for development on this property, but the project as proposed is inappropriate for the neighborhood and the size of the lot and does not exist in the Cooper Young historic landmark district. This will set a precedent for violating MEPIS 3.0 recommendations as well as the UDC despite significant opposition to this project. Please help us uphold the character of our neighborhood by rejecting this planned development. Thank you for your time. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. You have another?
Well, Madam Chair, while we still have Ms. Wall on the phone, would you like to ask the board if any members have any questions?
Any board member have any questions for Ms. Wall?
Okay.
Hearing none, we're ready for the next person.
Yes, ma'am. The next speaker is Mr. Jonathan Cole. Mr. Cole,
Hi, my
you're
name's
on.
Jonathan. Thanks. My name's Jonathan Cole. I live at 1889 Nelson Avenue, 3 doors down from the proposed development. I do want to first state that I'm pleased with the latest design. It's probably the best for a 4-unit structure that has been presented. However, I do urge the board to reject the proposal. I think, as Ms. Wall stated, that a 2-unit duplex design is most appropriate and is the best compromise for this particular plot of land. And I'll keep my comments brief so that others can speak.
Okay, thank you. Any board members have any questions for Mr. Cole? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the next person.
Yes, ma'am. Our next person in the queue is Mr. Ward Archer. Mr. Archer, you're on. Mr. Archer?
Here I am.
Thank you.
I'm Ward Archer, and I'm at 1902 Nelson Avenue, which is on the corner directly across from this proposed development. I would like to echo the 2 previous comments. My biggest concern is that 4 units is way too much for this piece of property. And with all due respect to the architect, it is crammed in there. And it's just going to create a host of problems, not the least of which will be parking and trash removal. And I think that they keep talking about how it's going to increase the property value in the neighborhood. I worry that if this is 4 units, it's going to actually decrease property values in the neighborhood. And that concludes my remarks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Archer. We have any questions, board members, of Mr. Archer? Hearing none, we're ready for the next opposer.
Yes, ma'am, and I'll note that this is our final person, so just so she knows, she has the balance of the time. And our next speaker is Ms. June West. Ms. West, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead, and thank you, Land Use Control Board. We appreciate all this. Memphis Heritage wants to speak on behalf of the concerns of the neighborhood. What our goal is, as Memphis Heritage...
Your address, please. Your address.
So sorry. 2282 Madison Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee, 38104.
Thank you.
We reiterate what the neighbors have said in regards to their concerns to the number of units, and that is what is being addressed by the Land Use Control Board today, not necessarily design. I too appreciate the bricks, the porch being bigger, but as Mr. Archer said, this is crammed onto a particular site. Our concern is that it sets a really scary precedent for Cooper Young and other historic neighborhoods where infill programs have massively taken over one lot and made it into multi-units. And so I would like to defer the rest of my time to any other Cooper Young residents that would like to speak. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions for Ms. West? Okay, hearing none, are there any more opposers at this time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, hearing none, then we're back to Mr. Kumar, and I think you have a few more than 3 minutes since you didn't use all of your time to rebuttal. And then we're going to have the board members ask you questions because I failed to do that.
Thank you for giving me that opportunity to talk. And also, like I said, we have Mr. Dweck also, and I would like him to speak as well. I'm going to still stress on the fact that this lot is different than what you typically see in the neighborhood. It is a corner lot, and it is at the intersection of Barksdale and Nelson. Barksdale is fairly wider and is capable of taking more traffic. We are not talking about, too many units. We are talking about 4 units, and I think it's big enough to take 4 units. You can see from our design, we have demonstrated the fact that it is with the 4 units. Still, we meet all the setback requirements the neighborhood has. It is all the units are has enough natural light, and as an architect personally, I don't see there's any it's not cramped like most of the people in the neighborhood they said, and we have made tremendous progress from what we were there before and what we are right now. It also has a commercial across the street, so having this development, I don't see it will have any adverse impact. In fact, I think it's going to add value and it's going to enhance the neighborhood. Like architecturally, again, they say it's not even a matter, but I think it's a multi-story multi-unit that's going to look like just like a single-family home, like any other home in the house. That's my take on this, and I like to have Mr. Dweck speak if he wants to.
Yes. Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, first of all, for giving us the opportunity to present our case. I want to thank everybody, including the Cooper Young Association, for being present to voice their opinion on this important project.
Sir, can you give us your name and address, please?
Yes, ma'am. I apologize. My name is Wasif Dweck. My address is 5392 Bentley Place, Memphis, Tennessee, 38120. As I mentioned, I am the developer for this project. I am just a little bit about myself. As I mentioned before, I am a Memphian. I've been here for 20 years. Memphis is my home, and I'm proud of it. I'm very happy at about the Cooper Young and how things are developing in Cooper Young and Memphis overall. I'd like to contribute to that growth and development. I find that Cooper Young is a very attractive place. It was for me when I was looking for a home. I was looking in the Cooper Young area to find a place to call home, and I found that there was very limited options in the way of new construction. My endeavor in taking this project on is not only to develop new construction that is both affordable and high quality, but also I feel that there is definitely the need for it. I appreciate the members' concerns, but I do feel that this property specifically lends itself to being a very good piece of property for development of this type of density. There is precedent in the area for such development. There was 10 houses that were 1,000 square feet approved and are being developed as we speak at the corner of LC and Tanglewood on a property that's 0.5 acres with avenues that are nowhere as wide as Barksdale or as conducive to Barksdale. I sincerely feel that this project is needed. I sincerely feel that this project is beneficial. It will add value to the area, and I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe in that wholeheartedly. So with that said, I yield back to you, Madam Chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns. And I really do hope that this project can be approved. I have other projects in the Cooper Young area. I don't want to leave a bad mark. My name is on this, and I want to make sure that I contribute positively to the area and to the city as a whole. So I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any board members have any questions of Mr. Dweck or Mr. Kumar? Do we have any questions of our applicants and or representative? Okay, hearing none. Assuming we're ready to close the public portion of our meeting. Dr. Pritchard?
Yes. Move approval of agenda item number 2, PD 20-01.
Do I hear a second?
Second by Wilbanks.
This is Jennifer O'Connell. Oh.
Okay. It has been moved and second. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion amongst our board members? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote, and we probably need to do that individually.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard?
No.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilbanks?
Yes.
Mr. Tolles?
No.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
And Chair Sharp?
No.
We have 6 ayes and 4 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Dr. Pritchard?
Madam Chair, I did not hear that agenda item number 4 was on the consent agenda. Is that correct?
That's correct. We are hearing.
Dr. Pritchard, it's going to be our next hearing for you to call out, number 4.
Right. That's what I thought. Agenda item number 4, S20-12, Cherry, 2-lot major commercial subdivision at 1492 Cherry. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? We do have some opposition, so we're going to hear it, but is the applicant here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We're ready, Mr. Bacchus, for the presentation.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Again, this is Brian Bacchus presenting this case on behalf of my colleague, Mr. Jeffrey Penzis. This is a subdivision, a 2-lot subdivision located on the east side of Cherry Road, more particularly 1492 Cherry Road. The current zoning is commercial mixed use 1. This property is about 2,000 or 20,000 square feet less than an acre at 8/10 of an acre of 8/10 of an acre. The staff has found that this proposal is consistent with the Memphis 3.0 plan. Mr. Penzis and staff has recommended approval with conditions. The subject property, as I stated earlier, is on the east side of Cherry Road, just north of Don Road, in the Quinch Road and Cherry Road area. The subject property is occupied by several buildings. They were apparently built together at one time in the commercial mixed-use district. The surrounding properties are also multifamily, as well as single-family to the east, and multifamily on the opposite side of the street, and office and retail commercial to the south along Don Avenue and Cherry Road. This property backs up to a single-family subdivision, but separated by a major drainage easement, channel line ditch that is located to the rear of the property. The site photos are listed shown on page 9 and 10. This is an area that's primarily commercial along this segment, as well as a multifamily development along the northern portion of this road. The site plan and survey reveals 2 separate buildings with parking to the rear. There's a mutual ingress egress easement that runs to the rear of the building to provide parking on the rear side, which also includes overhead power and overhead telephone lines. The 2 lots are lot 1 is approximately 24,000 square feet. Lot 2 is approximately 12,000 square feet with 2 existing buildings, 1 on each property, on each lot. The Office of Planning and Development has recommended approval with conditions, and I believe there's opposition as well. And Madam Chairman, I'll conclude with any questions you have of us. This application is as recommended to record the plat. All non-conforming detached signs and their structures shall be removed. No review by city engineer will be required prior to recording of the final plan. That's all I have, Madam Chairman. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have of us or either staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, do we have any questions of Mr. Bacchus at this time? Hearing none, I'm ready for the applicant, and if you would state your name and address.
My name is John Binke, 1164 Brookfield. Madam Chair and members of the board, normally when I'm before the Land Use Control Board, it's with a professional client, but today my client is my son, Jacob. And he's been in culinary for about 13 years. All of you have dined at the restaurants where he has chefed, and he's done his understudy with the who's who of Memphis chefs. He's ready to break out on his own at the ripe old age of 29 and start a catering business, and he has a extensive background in catering, professional catering. The landowner is Tony Brasso, and he's getting up in years, and he has been trying to sell this building for quite some time. And when we spotted it, we thought it'd be a perfect fit for a new catering business. It's the right size, and it's centrally located in Memphis. The building has been vacant for quite some time, and the catering kitchen, I think, will be a vast improvement to building out this space, making it attractive. There's lots of improvements happening in this little nook of East Memphis. We've made a provision for an easement on the south side of the building so that there's access to the back. That's in the real estate contract. We've also had discussions and have hired Mark Denton as our architect, and he's got a specialty in commercial kitchens, so we think we'll get a good result once we're able to begin renovations. Lastly, I was aware of 3 people that wrote in to OPD. I did talk to 2 of the neighbors. I talked to the owners of the apartments to the north, which are the Cherry Gardens apartments. Having spoken to them, we've got their blessing on this. And just a little side note, they have a tenant appreciation day, which we've already talked to them about supplying the food for the tenant appreciation day. And they do that jointly with the Cherry Creek apartments across the street. The other neighbor that had called in was the Cherry Road Baptist Church. And once I spoke to the head trustee, we got a very nice note from them putting their blessing on the project. So we plan to renovate this hopefully as soon as we get your approval. One last note, once the business is open, there will be no public access. This is strictly for private catering. Madam Chair, those are my highlights, and I'm happy to answer any questions from you or the board.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Board members, do we have any questions of Mr. Behinke? No questions? Okay. We'll go to the opposition, and then we'll come back to you, Mr. Behinke, for any rebuttal, and you've saved a bunch of your minutes, so we'll be glad to listen to you. We're ready for the opposition, and we need your name and address.
Madam Chair, the one and only speaker in opposition is Nikki Rainey. Ms. Rainey, you're on.
Good morning to all involved. Hello? Good morning to all involved, board members, as well as the person that's wanting to create this establishment. My name is Nikki Rainey. My address is 1511 Flamingo Road. I'm looking at the way the map is set up. I'm not exactly certain how close this new establishment is in regards to my property, but it does look like it's fairly close. I'm in opposition because I have lived in this area for a very long time, and I know that the apartments that's over there are poorly managed. There's a lot of crime and whatnot, and my fear is with this new establishment being created, if this property will be just as poorly managed, and the crime will then get that much closer to my home and my residence. So I'm in opposition of this establishment because I feel like it's just going to be as bad as the other stuff that's over there. So I guess that's the end of my claim.
Okay, do we have any questions of the opposition? Of Ms. Rainey, do we have any questions? Board members of Ms. Rainey? Okay, hearing none, we're going to go back to the applicant for your rebuttal.
Yes, Madam Chair. John Benke again. I appreciate Ms. Rainey's comments. I'll just say this. We're well capitalized. We know what we're doing. And right now the building is vacant, has been for a long time. And we've got the support of the other neighbors in the neighborhood that are immediately adjoining. I can say this. One of the influencing factors for us to manage risk was, what's the neighborhood like? And our take is that both the Cherry Creek Garden Apartments and the Cherry Creek and Cherry Gardens Apartments, two separate units, have both spent big money renovating those apartments. They're greatly improved, and we saw that as a positive, and we just feel very comfortable being in the neighborhood. We think it's on the up. And if Ms. Rainey ever wants to stop by or call me, I'll be happy to answer any questions she may have. But I think this will be a vast improvement in helping the continued upward track of the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, do we have any questions of either the applicant or the opposition at this point? Are there any questions? Hearing none, then I want to close the public portion of this meeting, and we will go to Dr. Pritchard for a motion.
Move approval of agenda item number 4, S20-12.
Do I hear a second? Is that Ms. Wilbanks?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have had a motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Is there any
This is Brown Gill. I was just going to say, I've spent time in this neighborhood and at the multifamily next door. This is a great use for that building, and I just wish John and his son luck at that location.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. Do you want to vote individually, or do you want to vote in group?
In group.
Okay. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Dr. Pritchard, we'll go to item number 7.
Agenda item 7, PD 99-366, a correspondence item, East Memphis revised site plan for Oaks Edge Retirement Facility at the northwest corner of Park and Haverhill. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Thank you. On this one, we'll go directly to the applicant. I think the applicant has some verbiage for us today. We'll go straight to the applicant.
Yes, ma'am. We have on the line Jennifer Paraguay, who, if you turn your attention to the YouTube video, I believe she has a revised site plan, and it'll be on the next slide. Ms. Paraguay, the floor is yours.
Hi, Jennifer Paraguay, Kimley Horn Associates. Did I set my address?
Yes.
I thought 6750 Poplar Avenue, Suite 600. I'm not sure if Mike Fay is on the line. I think he was going to present the site plan.
He was on earlier, but something must have happened.
Okay.
But we've alerted him of the situation, so he may call in at some point in the near future.
Okay. So the site plan, we took this through a year or so ago. We have made a few revisions from what we had given to Jeffrey, just in conjunction with conversations that Mike Fay had with the neighbors. So added some parking to the site plan. It's pretty maximized at this point, as you can see from the site plan, along with, the tree save areas and all of that. So I think the parking was the biggest change that we made in those conversations with the neighbors.
Okay. Any more presentations from the applicant?
I think that covers it, unless anybody else from the team has something to add.
Correspondence item.
Can't hear you.
Hello?
Is the applicant still speaking?
No. Am I echoed?
Do we have any questions for the applicant? Any questions?
Can you cut your YouTube, mute your YouTube in the back, please?
Can you cut your YouTube, mute your YouTube?
Okay. Madam Chair, Kevin Adams, the developer, was on the line. I think he had the sound issue, but if there's no questions for him or Ms. Paraguay, I suppose we can go straight to the discussion.
Okay. We are amenable to the staff recommendations, right?
Yes. Madam Chair, I'm receiving a note that Ms. Wilson, we do have a person in support, and she would like to speak before we move on to discussion. So, Ms. Wilson, I believe you've been unmuted, and the floor is yours, if you give us your name and address.
Yes, my name is Kathy Wilson, and I live at 4287 Amber Lane, which is just south of this property in the adjoining neighborhood. So can I go on and speak?
Yes, please.
So I'm here today on behalf of the Audubon Park Neighborhood Association, and we just want to say we appreciate the ongoing dialogue and cooperation with the developer. As I said last year when this plan first came before the board, we wish this property could stay green forever, but we know it can't. And if it can't, we feel like this is a good use for this property, and with the screening and setbacks along the south and west property line, the construction control plan, and other safeguards we've put in place with the developer, we are not opposed to this development, and we'll just continue to work with the developer to make sure the conditions are met that we've agreed upon with them.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do we have any questions of the applicants and or supporters at this time? Hearing none, I'm assuming we're ready for the motion.
I move approval of agenda item number 7, PD 99-366.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Wilbanks.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. Is there any discussion amongst the board members?
Madam Chairwoman, this is Mr. Fleming.
Yes.
Just wanted to make a comment. I'm very familiar with this site, having worked on it over the years, along with probably half a dozen other architects in town as to how to develop this property. And I just want to compliment the developer and for what I think is a very sensitive design, a great use for this site. The use is perfect, and how they address the neighbors to the west and to the south, I think is is very well done with those small cottages, how it blends into the neighborhood. And I just like to compliment the team for, I think, bringing to us a really good plan. So I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, any further discussion?
Madam Chair?
None? Yes?
May I make a suggestion? We have a revised site plan that has been presented before you. If we can get Dr. Pritchard, as the maker of the motion, to agree as a friendly amendment that her motion included the revised site plan.
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Okay. Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I believe our last item is 9 PD 2005 Highland Heights, and I believe that Mr. Whitehead may have a revised condition.
Okay. Thank
Dr.
you.
Pritchard, I read that. We placed that item on consent, and I read that into the consent agenda.
All right, so we're kosher on that.
We are, yes, ma'am.
All right. And I believe that's the end of the agenda.
I believe so, too.
I believe so, too. And if I don't have any other announcement or special engagements, I think we're all ready to get out and enjoy this beautiful June 11th day for those of us who can get out.
Yes,
so if I don't hear any objections, I move that this meeting be adjourned.
Second. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Awesome
Right.
job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.